Welcome to Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune and the groundbreaking for the National Intrepid Center of Excellence Satellite Center. This center, along with the others around the country, will extend the care provided at the National Intrepid Center of Excellence at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center in Bethesda, Maryland. These centers will provide the most advanced care possible to returning military personnel suffering from traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress, and related injuries. Data from these centers will aid in ongoing research programs helping to improve detection, diagnosis, and treatment. Please welcome our distinguished guest for today's ceremony. Major Stephen Taylor, United States Marine Corps, National Intrepid Center of Excellence patient. Dr. James Kelly, Director of National Intrepid Center of Excellence. Mr. Arnold Fisher, the Honorary Chairman of Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund. Mr. Richard Santulli, the Chairman of the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund. General Joseph Dumford, Assistant Commandant of the Marine Corps. Also in our audience today are several distinguished guests. Lieutenant General John M. Paxton, Jr., Commanding General, 2nd Marine Expeditionary Force, and Commander, United States Marine Forces, Africa. Mr. Marty Edelman, Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund Trustee. General Richard Cody, United States Army Retired, Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund Trustee. Ms. Georgette Mossbacher, Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund Trustee. Mr. David Winters, President, Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund. Mr. Bill White, Past President, Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund. Major General James A. Kessler, Commander, Marine Corps Installations Command, Assistant Deputy Commandant for Installations and Logistics. Brigadier General Thomas A. Gorey, Commanding General, Marine Corps Installations East, Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune. Rear Admiral Elizabeth S. Niemeyer, Director, Nurse Corps, United States Navy. Deputy Chief, Wounded, Ill, and Injured, Bureau of Medicine and Surgery. Captain David Lane, Medical Corps, United States Navy. Commanding Officer, Camp Lejeune Naval Hospital. We would also like to thank everyone for taking the time to attend this afternoon's ceremony. Today, we welcome a gentleman who has been an integral part of the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund's success since its founding in 2000. Under his leadership, the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund has provided more than $120 million in support to the men, women, veterans, and families of the United States Armed Forces. The fund has supported families of fallen military heroes, opened the Center for the Intrepid at Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio, Texas, the preeminent rehabilitation center for severely injured service members, and the National Intrepid Center of Excellence. Ladies and gentlemen, the chairman of the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund, Mr. Richard T. Santulli.
Thank you, and thank you all for joining us on this special day. On behalf of all the trustees of the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund, many of whom are here, I am deeply honored to launch this important effort to help care for those that have sacrificed so much for our country. The Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund was established in 2000 to continue the efforts of a great American, the late Zachary Fisher. Zach was motivated by a strong conviction that all Americans own a debt to those that serve in uniform, defending our nation and our freedom. The center that we will build here and the other 7 to 10 centers that we will build at bases around the country is our way of paying that debt. The Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund is singularly capable of addressing this challenge. In 2010, we completed the construction of the NICO Center, the National Center of Excellence in Bethesda, the Department of Defense's premier facility dedicated to research, diagnosis, and treatment of brain injuries. This was a huge project, 72,000 square foot building, $60 million cost, which we completed on time and under budget. 3 years earlier, we did the same with the Center for the Intrepid in San Antonio, Texas, which supports our wounded heroes who have suffered amputation or burn injuries. We worked closely with military medical leadership to determine what facilities and equipment our wounded heroes needed, and then we set out to complete the mission. The result is a state-of-the-art facility that provides a greater level of care for those brave young men and women. And the 7 to 10 NICO satellite centers we are committing to build today will help thousands more. And once our organization builds a facility at a base, it will be turned over to that base to operate. This is truly a great example of public-private partnership producing a critically needed result. Today, we are asking all Americans to join in our campaign to support this extremely important effort. We need your help to raise the money needed to build more of these centers. Each will cost between $10 to $11 million. Yes, a great deal of money, but not when compared to what our men and women in uniform have sacrificed. Please join us in this effort to help pay some of the debt we all owe them. Thank you again for being with us today. We look forward to coming back again next year to dedicate the center. Thank you.
Neurology is a medical specialty that, in its simplest definition, deals with the diagnosis and treatment of the nervous system. Today, we welcome one of America's top neurologists and an expert on treating brain injury. He is a professor of neurosurgery and physical medicine and rehabilitation at the University of Colorado School of Medicine and has been named as one of America's top doctors for the past 10 years. He is a fellow of the American Academy of Neurology and a diplomat in the neurology of the American Board of Psychiatry and Neurology. He is a consulting neurologist to the Defense and Veterans Brain Injury Center and served as the first chairman of the Defense Health Board's Traumatic Brain Injury External Advisory Subcommittee for Military Clinical Care, Research, and Education. Ladies and gentlemen, the director of the National Intrepid Center of Excellence, Dr. James Kelly.
Mr. Fisher, Mr. Santulli, General Dunford, Generals, Admirals, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to be here today. On the campus of the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center in Bethesda, Maryland, resides a magnificent gift from the American people given to our military personnel who have been injured in the service of this nation. It's called the National Intrepid Center of Excellence, or NICO. It was conceived in 2007 as an advanced diagnostic and treatment facility in response to the needs of the Marines, soldiers, sailors, and airmen who were living with the effects of concussions or more severe traumatic brain injuries, along with the emotional scars of war. They had put themselves in harm's way on our behalf. There is no more deserving group of Americans than these for whom such a facility as NICO could have been created. But besides being built to provide state-of-the-art clinical care, the NICO has two other critical missions, those being research and education. This amazing institute has been equipped by the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund and staffed by the U.S. Department of Defense to advance our understanding of complex human conditions coexisting in the same individual. The comorbid or combined effects of traumatic brain injury and psychological health conditions such as post-traumatic stress, anxiety, and depression, which are experienced by many of our military returning from war zones half a world away. The fitting inscription on the marble dedication wall at the National Intrepid Center of Excellence calls it, "A place to heal the invisible wounds of war." Along with leading scientists in our nation's major academic medical centers and our partners in the federal agencies such as the National Institutes of Health and the Veterans Administration, NICO's charge is to make visible what is invisible and to restore to wellness the person whose physical health and interpersonal relationships have been disrupted by the most extreme of life's events. Knowing how those closest to our service members are also affected by these unseen injuries, families are actively encouraged to participate in the care we offer at NICO. The satellites will bring that opportunity right into the communities where our service members and their families live. Mr. Arnold Fisher asked me some time back, can't you have the same effect at other existing clinics by just showing people what you do at NICO? I replied, as many of our military leaders here today have observed, that a building so thoughtfully designed as NICO itself has healing properties that many have experienced even when visiting for a short time. Similarly, the new satellite buildings will offer an unparalleled opportunity for staff such as those here under the direction of Captain Lane, to provide healthcare services within an optimal healing environment. Today we celebrate the commitment of the leaders of the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund and the leaders of our armed forces to the creation of a NICO satellite here at Camp Lejeune. NICO is, and its satellites will be, special places where healthcare professionals apply principles of modern medicine and technology which have passed the test of rigorous scientific investigation while finding ways to integrate effective alternative methods of care that reduce pain and suffering and promote healing. It is that unique blend of advanced high-tech and empathic high-touch that constitutes NICO's innovative model of outpatient intensive care. We are collaborating with hospital leaders here at Camp Lejeune and their TBI and behavioral health teams to maximize collaboration by sharing NICO's staffing model, our clinical processes, interdisciplinary treatment approach, and clinical outcome measures. Together, the working relationship of NICO with its satellites here and elsewhere will expand our research opportunities, multiply the number of service members we can care for, and elevate the level of health care available across the military health system. We look forward to working even more closely with our colleagues here at Camp Lejeune as we move forward with this important next step together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Many Marines have already personally benefited from the treatment provided by the National Intrepid Center of Excellence. This afternoon, please welcome one such Marine who was recently a patient at the National Intrepid Center of Excellence in Bethesda, Maryland. Ladies and gentlemen, Major Stephen Taylor.
Thank you. General Dunford, Mr. Santulli, Mr. Fisher, General Officers, distinguished guests. Good afternoon. I returned from Afghanistan back in February 2011. Although this was to be a joyful and much anticipated event, over the next few months, I failed to recognize and refused to admit that I was not quite the same person I was a year before. Family and friends immediately identified a significant change in my demeanor, but treaded lightly because any discussion of potential affliction was usually met with a barrage of cruel four-letter words, creating lasting wounds. In my mind, I was no different. Everyone else had changed. Any mention of a disorder revealed a weakness, a vulnerability that could be potentially seen as a flaw adversely affecting my ability to lead and train Marines. I could not afford a blemish on my career because there were future billets and deployments that I needed to be ready for. I had convinced myself that I was fine. It was everyone else that had the problem. I was not about to slow down for medical reasons, and I maintained the facade and went about as though nothing was wrong. Withdrawn and confrontational, I continued to dismiss the fact that my behavior stemmed from a medical condition, and it continued to fester. After drudging through a depressive year of fatigue compounded by constant migraines, insomnia, and a failing memory, I gradually accepted the fact that my capabilities were deteriorating both physically and mentally. More importantly, my abilities as a father and a husband were being adversely affected. After months of denial, it was instantaneous as I watched my 3-year-old cower down and cover his ears in silence to silence a verbal assault on my wife over a pizza topping. A pizza topping. Out of all things I forget on a daily basis, that is a lasting image I cannot shake. I almost lost my family. I needed help, and I was ashamed. I didn't want anyone to know of my therapy and privately sought treatment. After a series of appointments and an MRI that concerned medical officers, I was diagnosed with a traumatic brain injury. I was hesitant to tell anyone for fear of my aptitude to lead would be called into question. I was worried of possible repercussions. Eventually, I was referred to a facility called NICO. Reluctantly, I informed my colonel about the National Intrepid Center of Excellence. I anticipated a skeptical apprehension, a concern regarding the cost, and a replacement to fill my absence. But to my astonishment, entirely the opposite was the chain of command. Not only was my chain of command receptive to my path to recovery, every accommodation was made to support my rehabilitation and provide assistance to my family while I was receiving treatment. As I traveled to Bethesda, I didn't know what to expect from NICO, but within the first day I realized that something was very unique, very special about this place. I was placed in a small group with other individuals from various services with diverse medical conditions. Although there were significant range in pay grades and experiences, we all began the transformation together. We resided in the Fisher House, where I made lasting friendships with junior Marines, a number of Navy SEALs, National Guardsmen, Airmen, and Special Forces, all from different backgrounds, but coming together with the same common objective to restore, rebuild, and reconcile. Restore the service member's health, rebuild his character and sense of worth, and reconcile the veiled wounds that do not reveal themselves until it's too late, and we as leaders are left asking why. The centralized focus of care can encompass a wide range of state-of-the-art treatment uniquely tailored to each individual. Within the first week, the recuperation was evident. The staff at NICO made you their priority, and at the end of 4 weeks, I was back, invigorated and recharged. NICO will never fully heal the wounds of war, but what it did was provide me with the tools to overcome the barriers that have impeded me as a Marine, a father, and a husband. It is a struggle, but one I'm prepared to take on. There are a great many Marines and sailors that refuse to acknowledge deep-seated injuries, and as we scale back from Afghanistan, commands are beginning to experience the lasting effects of combat and the impact it has had on the service member, his family, and the unit. I am pleased and excited that NICO will now be here at Camp Lejeune, and we will have the ability to provide the precise, specialized care and support these men and women. I'm honored to have been asked to speak at the National Intrepid Center of Excellence, and I look forward to its completion here at Camp Lejeune. Thank you.
Thank you, Major Taylor. Americans committed to supporting our wounded heroes in uniform and their families is only one of the reasons the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund was created. Today, we welcome a past president of the Fisher House Foundation and the Intrepid Sea, Air, and Space Museum in New York. His family's company, Fisher Brothers, is a real estate leader in New York, and he is a builder at heart. As such, he has spearheaded the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund Center for the Intrepid Project at Brooke Army Medical Center, and was the driving force behind the National Intrepid Center of Excellence project. Today, he is leading the NICO Satellite Center projects. His leadership and guidance have resulted in outstanding care for thousands of wounded heroes. Ladies and gentlemen, the Honorary Chairman of the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund, Mr. Arnold Fisher.
Thank you for that very nice introduction. Before I begin, I want to tell you how impressed I am with Camp Lejeune. I am very impressed with the work that you have done prior to us even starting this satellite. Very impressed. And just as a side note, Commandant Conway made me an honorary Marine about 4 or 5 years ago. I left the service after completing my tour of duty in Korea, and when we started the Center for Intrepid in San Antonio, I had a mentor. I had a man who pushed everything out of my way. A man that has helped me for the last 5, 6, or 7 years to complete our mission, and that's retired General Dick Cody. when we first started to think about the Center of Excellence in Bethesda, we knew that that wasn't going to be enough because we could only handle a few every couple of weeks. And I know that there are thousands of servicemen and women that are coming back with some form of TBI or post-traumatic stress. So the idea was established to create a string that reached from Bethesda to satellites around the country at the major bases where troops leave to go to theater and where troops return. They can't all go to NICO. So we have to have places for you to come when you get home. This is a mission that the Fallen Heroes Fund has taken upon ourselves. This is a very important thing for us to accomplish. I know that there are quite a few Marines in this audience that have come home with some problems. And I think to begin with, to tell you, we will do everything possible to make you better. In San Antonio, men and women were coming home after giving up legs and giving up arms. We've been able to create prosthetics that maybe won't make them 100%, but will make them be able to live somewhat of a normal life. We want to do the same for you here. It is very important that when you raise your right hand to defend this country, and when you come back with a problem, it is our responsibility. This country's responsibility is to help you, and that's what we will do forever. I was told a long time ago that it is not a wrong thing to say when you have a wounded buddy to stand over him and say, I love you. I'm going to tell you that. I love you.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Leadership is a cornerstone of our Corps' history. Our next guest has been a part of that history for more than 35 years as a leader of Marines at every echelon. As a general officer, he has served as the Assistant Division Commander, 1st Marine Division, Director, Operations Division, Plans, Policies, and Operations, Headquarters Marine Corps, and the Deputy Commandant for Plans, Policies, and Operations. Prior to being named Assistant Commandant of the Marine Corps, he has served as Commanding General, 1st Marine Expeditionary Force, and Commander, Marine Corps Forces Central Command. Ladies and gentlemen, the Assistant Commandant of the Marine Corps, General Joseph Dunford.
Hey, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. All of the distinguished guests here today have been recognized, less one group of very important people, and frankly, the group of very important people that we're actually here gathered today for, and that's the Wounded Warriors here in the second row. So I just ask you to please help me in recognizing them. Let me start by once again thanking Mr. Fisher. And Mr. Fisher, thanks for all that you and your family have done for our men and women in uniform, but particularly for your vision in establishing NICO and for your drive in making sure we have these satellites that are down here. And I think those of you who have never met Mr. Fisher before can tell that all that he's doing comes from the heart. And we use this phrase a lot, and sometimes it's used probably too cavalierly, but Mr. Fisher is what I would categorize as truly a great American. And I mean that sincerely. I'd also like to thank Mr. Richard Santulli, the trustees, and the members of the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Fund. Thanks for your generosity, and as importantly, thanks for, again, your commitment and your vision in making today a reality. General Cody, Billy White, and so many others that are behind the scenes that have helped make this happen. You've been a great partner. You've been great partners, and couldn't be more appreciative of all that you have done. It's an honor to be here on a great day at Camp Lejeune. Today is more than about brick and mortar. It's about a lot more than a building. You know, Mr. Fisher is fond of saying that he builds things, and then he says, "Once I start building, get out of my way." And if again you're just exposed to him for 5 minutes, you know that he means that. Well, Mr. Fisher, we're about to build a building here today, and we're about to get out of your way. But what we're really doing today is building a symbol of commitment to our wounded warriors and their families. And what we'll be doing here is rebuilding the lives of those who have made a significant sacrifice for our nation. Today, as we do this, to be honest with you, I've got mixed emotions. I'm pretty proud of all the progress we've made to deal with the challenges of PTS and TBI. I'm proud of the progress we've made over the past few years in dealing with invisible wounds. And I'm proud of the commitment of our doctors, our nurses, our therapists, and our corpsmen to provide world-class medical care to our Marines and sailors. And I'm appreciative of all the support that we've received from outside the Department of Defense, especially the folks that are here today. And certainly I'm appreciative of Dr. Jim Kelly, who's here today, and all that his folks have done up at NICO. The changes that they have made in people's lives have been nothing short of profound. But as proud as I am of our progress to date, I'm not at all satisfied with where we are today or the pace of our progress. I'm impatient about what we have yet to learn, and I'm frustrated by the thousands who have yet to be properly treated. You know, although the psychological impact of war was recorded by historians as early as 484, and despite all the research that we've done on the human brain, we're not today where we want to be. We're not today where we need to be. And don't get me wrong, we've come a long way over the last few years, and we've certainly come a long way from previous wars. I recently saw a BBC report that described how the British shot 300 of their own soldiers in World War I. They were exhibiting signs of what was called at that time shell shock. We refer to that today as post-traumatic stress. In World War II, the sentiments of leaders hadn't changed much, and most of you recall the famous scene from the movie Patton, where Patton's visiting Marines and he's visiting soldiers, and he's compassionately visiting each one of them until he gets to one that is shaken like a leaf, and he asks the nurse what's wrong with him, and she says he's suffering from the stress of combat. And Patton removes his gloves and slaps the individual. During and after Vietnam, we certainly recognized PTS as an invisible wound of war, but our efforts to diagnose it and properly treat it fell far short of the mark. And many continued not to seek treatment because of the stigma associated with post-traumatic stress. Over the past decade, we've come a long way in eliminating that stigma, and we've learned a lot about treating it. And we've come a long way in our methods of treating TBI as well. Frankly, we've made a lot of progress since we opened the NICO in 2010. And earlier, in a way that no one else could describe as well, Major Taylor described his experiences up at NICO. And I could tell you story after story of individual Marine soldiers and sailors and airmen who have gone through the NICO up at Bethesda, and the results have been equally profound as Major Taylor's. And I could talk about the work that's being done here at Camp Lejeune Naval Hospital. Spent a couple hours with the team this morning, and I got to tell you, they get it. They get where we need to be, they get where we are, and they couldn't be more committed to take care of our Marines and sailors. But without taking away from all that progress that's been made, I'd like to share a couple of stories that just highlight for you the cost of not getting it right. The first story is about a sergeant. Sergeant deployed twice to Iraq. By all accounts, performed bravely and competently in combat. He came back and he was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress. And after he was seeking treatment, he was exposed to 20 different medications in the course of his treatment. Kept going back to the doctors, they tried different medications and so forth. He was also diagnosed with alcohol dependency. The problem was the doctors didn't know about his alcohol dependency, and the leadership in his chain of command didn't know about all the medications that he was on. One Saturday night, he went over to a friend of his house just to watch movies. They consumed some alcohol, and eventually the sergeant went to bed. The next morning, when his buddy went down to find the sergeant, he was laying on the ground with blood and foam coming out of his mouth. He was dead. a lethal overdose of the drugs that he was on, as well as the alcohol. Chain of command didn't recognize the challenge that they had. Ironically, he was due to attend inpatient alcohol treatment 7 days after he was found dead. The second individual I'd like to tell you about is just a captain. This captain had 4 tours of combat between 2003 and 2009, 3 Purple Hearts, Bronze Star with a V. When he came back, he had significant problems. He had blackouts, he had anxiety attacks, he had all kinds of problems adapting and performing his duties. His fellow Marines knew that he had some issues. His chain of command knew that he wasn't quite right. He saw a couple of doctors, but we never really diagnosed him as having anything wrong, and he was eventually returned to full duty. Some months later, after his last medical appointment, when he was declared up for full duty, he was reassigned to fill an individual augment billet in Afghanistan. So he's at Camp Lejeune, California, and sent to Tampa en route to fill an individual augment billet. The chain of command in Tampa had no idea what had gone on in this captain's life. In about 48 hours after he arrived in Tampa, he was drunk, at the wheel, got in an automobile accident and killed somebody, eventually went to jail for manslaughter. We knew that the captain had problems. We knew that he had some issues. It was June, the incident happened in April, and it was June before he was diagnosed with PTS and TBI. A little bit late to avoid unbelievable tragedy. I've seen many similar cases, and I know that there's many more out there. In the future, we're going to have a better chance of intervening in cases like that sergeant and the captain because of what NICO will offer here at Camp Lejeune. It's going to offer increasingly effective interdisciplinary methods to diagnose and treat Marines that have PTS, TBI, or both. The treatment's going to be reinforced, as Dr. Kelly talked about, by the research that takes place up at the National Intrepid Center of Excellence on the Bethesda campus. And we're going to be collaborating with the very best teaching hospitals across the United States. It's going to be truly world class. But to be truthful, the stories of the captain and the sergeant won't ever go away unless there's another ingredient added to what's going to be here at the National Intrepid Center of Excellence. To fully realize the potential of this facility here at Camp Lejeune, we also need the decisive engagement of peers to recognize when something's wrong with their buddy and to make sure someone in the chain of command knows that. And we're going to need the decisive, engaged leadership of the chain of command when a Marine does have an issue, that they make sure they intervene properly and hold on to that Marine by the stack and swivel until they get the proper care and treatment that they need to have, and as Mr. Fisher alluded to, that they absolutely deserve to have. As we get ready to break the ground here at the National Intrepid Center of Excellence, Camp Lejeune, we also need to make a commitment to do all that we need to do to take full advantage of the building and take full advantage of the staff. And I'll close by telling you that although I am impatient today, and although I do have mixed emotions, I'm also filled with optimism. I'm filled with optimism because I look out here today and I see the commitment of the leadership that's here. I see the commitment of the medical folks that are sitting here in the front row. I see the commitment of the Fisher team and the National Intrepid Center for Fallen Heroes. And I realize that we're going to get better. We're going to move forward. We're going to go in the right direction. And we're going to provide our Marines and sailors with exactly the world-class care that they deserve to have. And we're going to deal with these invisible wounds of war with the same level of expertise, the same level of competence, and the same level of success that we've dealt with our amputees and other injuries. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks very much for the chance to be here with you today. More importantly, thank you for those who are going to perform their duties on this site to take care of our Marines and sailors that suffer from invisible wounds. And once again, thanks to the team here at MCI East, thanks to MCICOM, and thanks to all the folks that have made this possible. I appreciate it.
We are honored to officially break ground for the National Intrepid Center of Excellence Satellite Center at Camp Lejeune.
Dig. All right. Smile when you shovel. Yes, sir.